All right, let's talk about a word you've probably been hearing a lot lately, recession. We're going to break down what it is, how it really affects us, and maybe surprisingly, why it's a totally normal part of how the economy works. So let's get into it. So you turn on the news, you're scrolling online, and boom, there it is again, the R word. It can sound pretty scary, right? But what does it actually mean when you hear that the economy is in a recession or that one might be coming? Let's clear that up.
First things first, let's get a solid definition. What are we really talking about here? It's not just a general feeling that things are slow. There's an actual technical definition, but don't worry, it's way more straightforward than it sounds. At its heart, a recession is just a major, widespread downturn in economic activity that lasts for more than a few months. Think of it like the whole economy is taking a big step back after a period of running forward. The words to really hang on to here are significant and extended. It's not just a bad week. So how do we know when it's official? Well, a common rule of thumb you'll hear all the time comes down to the number 2. If a country's economy shrinks for 2 3-month periods in a row, that's 2 consecutive quarters, that's the classic signal for a recession.
Okay, so that's the textbook definition. But what does a shrinking economy actually feel like for you, for me, for businesses? Because it isn't just a number on a screen, it has very real effects on everyday life.
It all kicks off with this. GDP, gross domestic product, is basically the price tag of everything a country makes and sells. In a recession, that number is going down. It means that, as a whole, we're producing and buying less stuff than we were before.
And that makes sense, right? When the big picture looks a little shaky, people get nervous. We worry about our jobs, so we tend to hold back on spending money, on everything from a new phone to going out to eat. And businesses do the exact same thing.
And this, unfortunately, is where it hits home for a lot of people. If customers aren't buying as much, companies don't need to make as much. So to save money, they slow down hiring, and in a lot of cases, they have to start letting people go.
And here's where things can get kind of sticky, because all of this creates a feedback loop. You can see how it works. People lose jobs, so they spend less. When people spend less, businesses sell less, which forces them to cut even more jobs. It can become a self-feeding cycle.
Now, I know that all sounds pretty grim, but this is where we have to zoom out and get some really important perspective. Because as painful as they can be, recessions aren't these random disasters that come out of nowhere. They're actually a predictable part of a much bigger cycle.
This quote right here really nails it. The economy naturally has its ups and downs, its peaks and its valleys. A recession is a valley. It often acts as a necessary cool-down period after the economy has been growing super fast, maybe too fast. It can help bring down prices and set the stage for healthier, more sustainable growth down the road.
Oh, and it's super important to make this distinction. You might also hear the word depression, and that is a whole different animal. A recession is tough, but it's temporary, usually lasting for a few months or maybe a couple of years. A depression is a much, much deeper and longer economic collapse that can last for many years. They are not the same thing.
So, if recessions are a normal part of the cycle, does that mean we just sit back and let them happen? No way. There's a whole playbook for how governments, banks, and even regular investors react to try and soften the blow. So you've got a couple of key responses. Governments and central banks will often step in. They might cut interest rates to make it cheaper for people and businesses to borrow money, hoping that encourages spending. On the other side, the advice for investors is usually pretty simple. Don't panic. The focus is on the long game, because historically, the market always recovers. And really, that's the single most important thing to take away from all of this. Recessions end. They are, by their very definition, temporary. They're not a cliff we fall off. They're a valley we move through. And after every single downturn in history, a period of recovery and growth has followed.
So it really is a cycle of ups and downs. And that leaves us with a pretty cool question to think about. Since we know every downturn is followed by an upturn, what do you think is going to spark the next big wave of growth? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.